last week on Legally Kidnapped.
Good evening. Our top story this week. Presidential candidate Rick Santorum claims that the Obama administration is more interested in protecting the rights of pornographers over children and families, and if elected, he promises to ban porn in the USA. In California this week, Kern County is reviewing how CPS agents snatch children without permission from the court to see if changes are in order. In Nebraska, the child protective industry is up in arms after Richard Wexler, the great leader of the National Coalition of Child Welfare Reform, says that they're taking too many kids. In Connecticut, the child protective industry is looking for ways to work with families and appear less adversarial. And Connecticut lawmakers consider a bill that would allow people to have their names taken off the child abuse register. In Indiana, the child protective industry tries to block a newspaper's attempt to publish a story based on a recording of a call to the child abuse hotline and fails. The New Hampshire Supreme Court rules that the media can attend child abuse proceedings in a case regarding whether or not parents accused of child abuse have the right to legal counsel. And in Kentucky, the House backs a bill for more oversight of the child protective industry as the press leads efforts to open child abuse records to the media. In Florida this week, CPS agents are going to get a pay raise thanks to their failures in the Nubia Barahona case where a 10-year-old twin was killed at the hands of her adoptive parents. This in an effort to create a better child welfare system. In Tennessee, some foster parents aren't getting paid while others are getting overpaid, and the state is blaming it on a computer glitch. In California, a group of system sucks is accusing the state of being deadbeat parents by underfunding foster care agencies, while in Los Angeles, budget cuts that are closing down courtrooms are forcing kids to stay in foster care longer as it is taking longer for their cases to be heard. A new report reveals that tens of thousands of students, most of them with special needs, are being restrained in U.S. schools, and disability advocates are hoping that a new Education Department report will spur federal action to end it. The latest upcoming version of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual is being criticized after it is revealed that those who are writing it have financial conflicts of interest with the drug companies, and Rhode Island considers ending the practice of sending foster kids to out-of-state facilities. In India this week, non-governmental organizations are taking to the streets against abuse at orphanages, and the Indian government issues notice that they are going to start cracking down on children's shelters without licenses. In Russia, a set of twins who was adopted by an American woman are left abandoned in the freezing cold on a Russian street by a mystery man. A Russian court grants parenthood to the real mother of a girl who was switched at birth 13 years ago and raised by a Muslim family. A warlord from the Congo is convicted of using child soldiers. And a real mother from New Zealand beats the living shit out of a CPS agent after finding out that her kids would not be coming home with her. In Canada, a family of Burmese refugees will not get an apology from the child protective industry after their family was wrongfully torn apart. Plaintiffs have until May 4th to opt out of a long-running class action lawsuit against Canada's child protective industry on behalf of foster kids in Alberta, and the lid is blown open over Canada's forced adoption practices of the past after a woman calls for an inquiry into Prince Edward Island's systematic practice of coerced adoptions of children. The Salvation Army in Alberta launches an internal review into the practice of coerced adoptions in maternity homes that housed unwed mothers. A church in Quebec is facing a lawsuit over undue pressure on single mothers to offer their children up for adoption. Ontario is urged to look into accusations of coerced adoption from women who say they were pressured into giving up their kids by social service agencies, medical workers, and churches. And the government of British Columbia gets hit with a class action lawsuit based on claims accusing the province of abduction, fraud, and coercion in connection with adoptions among unmarried women from the 1940s until the early 1990s. In Australia this week, the anti-abuse people of New South Wales are upset about the government's drive to outsource the foster care system to the private sector. Some idiot thinks that forced adoption practices of the past should be justified after being considered within the context of its time, but the government thinks that their admission of guilt in regards to forced adoption practices should help in the healing process. In England, a psychiatrist who intentionally misdiagnosed parents with mental disorders so that their children would be taken away faces a probe from the GMC, leading to claims of incompetence from so-called experts all across the UK. And a real mother is claiming every parent's nightmare as she fights to keep her children out of foster care in light of the excessive paranoia and child abuse hysteria which took place in the aftermath of the Great Baby P failure to protect case. In entertainment news this week, Whitney Houston's foster son denies claims that he was dating her daughter Bobby, and the child protective industry gives a glowing report of Gabriel Aubrey saying that he is a loving and attentive father, and he says that if Halle Berry ever takes him to court again over unfounded claims, he'll sue her. In Oklahoma, a CPS agent is accused of stealing $3,700 from 3 disabled foster kids. 2 Oklahoma foster parents are arrested for beating and torturing kids in their care, including making them eat their own vomit. In Mississippi, an 18-year-old foster kid is charged with beating her foster mother. And in Illinois, a foster molester is freed after his bail is lowered from $50 million to $250,000 following his indictment. In Minnesota, a former teacher and foster parent must pay his foster son $240,000 for using the kid in the production of child pornography. In Ohio, an adoptive dad is indicted on 31 counts of rape. In Texas, a CPS agent who got busted for paying teenagers to have sex with him hands in his resignation amidst new allegations that he accessed one of the kid's case files. And 3 young siblings turned to their foster mother for help after being repeatedly raped by a Mexican street gang while in foster care. In California, a trial begins for a Fresno County man who stands accused of molesting foster kids. A counselor at a California children's home is convicted of child molestation. In New York this week, CPS supervisor is docked 15 days' pay for misusing a database to look up a family member's information. A real mother gets busted for trying to rescue her son from New York City's foster care system. An Oklahoma jury returns a $4.5 million verdict against a mental health agency and counselor who is accused of failing to report sexual abuse. And medically fragile children are suing the state of Florida, saying that it will be more expensive to care for them in nursing homes than by providing in-home treatment. In Ohio, an obese boy who was returned to his mother after dropping 50 pounds will remain in her care even after putting on more weight. The state of Oregon has to pay $432,000 to the estate of a little girl who died in foster care 4 years ago. A real father from Pennsylvania is fighting for custody of his son who was adopted right out from under him in Utah. California snatches the kids from medical marijuana users. Los Angeles County may have to pay $500,000 to the 9-year-old biological daughter of a foster parent after she was raped by a 17-year-old foster kid. And finally, tonight in Massachusetts, CPS agents want the state to lower their retirement age from 65 to 60, and the same article tells us that 80% of the CPS agents in the state are women, which suggests that CPS is the result of feminist bullshit, and that 50% of CPS agents have been physically assaulted, which pretty much proves that they're pissing people off. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.